I can see that day like it was yesterday. I came home from sixth grade, and there was my dad standing in the living room. It was the middle of the day. What was he doing home? And not only that, but a couple of his railroad buddies were with him, as was my mom. They were talking in serious tones, very concerned, very upset. As I listened intently from the other room, it was clear that my dad had passed out at work. That was the beginning. The beginning of countless doctors' appointments, trips to Pittsburgh and Buffalo, to surgeries, hospital stays, to a weird place called Roswell Memorial Hospital. To interventions by the church, regular visits by pastor. How did I miss it? How did I not see what was going on? I mean, really going on. I was clueless. But I had my own life to live. I was making that radical transition into a teenager. There was all that hormone stuff going on. I was in junior high, and for the first time in my life, I was having to work at studies. And then there was all that relationship stuff that starts happening. I had my own life. No wonder I couldn't see. At the end of Jesus' Galilean ministry in Mark's Gospel, there's a healing story. Blind Bartimaeus. He shows up and wants to be healed. And Jesus spits on the ground, makes mud, puts it on his eyes, washes it off, and asks if he can see. He says, well, sort of, but people look like trees walking. Jesus repeats the procedure, and he says, yes, I see clearly. As I've said countless times before, miracles in the New Testament are rarely just miracles. They're also teaching opportunities. At the end of this section, where Jesus has been running around the countryside preaching and teaching and doing miracles, and now stands at the gates of Jerusalem, where the true story of his passion will begin. We are asked the question, how well do we see? Because we have seen in these last few chapters how so few are still able to see what is going on, what God is doing in Jesus, how God has broken into the world. It seems so long ago that we heard those words from Jesus following his baptism. The kingdom of God has come near. Turn around and look. See it coming. But they can't see anything. The religious leaders are still obsessed with the law and keeping the Torah, that they cannot entertain the fact that Jesus might be a Messiah with a different agenda than theirs. The young man has so much stuff that he can't possibly follow Jesus. And even the disciples, when they hear the news of what's coming, fall into fighting over who's the greatest and who's going to succeed Jesus in the next election. No one seems to be able to see. And if they do, it's kind of like trees walking. How well do we see? How well are we prepared to enter into what God is about to do? We too have so much stuff blinding us. The world around us is spinning, seemingly out of control. Things that we thought we would never see, we see daily. It's a crazy mess. We wonder if society will survive. And our own lives are heaped with anxieties and fears. There's all that COVID stuff still lingering. The politics of the day get uglier and uglier. Everything around us seems dark. Seems like trees walking these days. How hard it is to see clearly. How do we see? How do we see what God is doing in the midst of all that we have to deal with? Jesus gives us a clue. In the midst of all this turmoil, Jesus offers some advice. Look with the eyes of a child. If you've happened to spend any time with a child, I mean a little child, before we get our hands on them and try to make them mini adults, pay attention to the world that they live in. It's a creative world. It's a world of mystery and magic, a fantasy. It's a world very much unlike ours, where they are filled with wonder and awe, where they're willing to tackle anything without worrying about what it might mean. Oh, sometimes they get in serious trouble, but oh, for the wonder, it may be worth it. I got a lesson in this the other night. I was at Savannah, my 6-year-old granddaughter's soccer game. I'd forgotten what chaos could happen at that age when you put 20-some girls on the field and a ball and told them to kick it. They kicked the ball, they kicked each other, they just were one big huddle moving up and down the field. Chaos abounded. And on top of all that were the screaming parents and coaches, each trying to call out their child's name, to do something, to be something, to kick in some way. As I looked, there was Savannah, holding a blade of grass. I wonder what she saw. I wonder what I was missing. I wonder what we are missing in our world of blindness. What would it be like to see again with the eyes of a child? Would we see the hand of God more clearly amidst the chaos and recognize that God is in control of this mess, that He is calling us to play a part? Who knows what we might see if we could see like children? We might see the amazing grace of God in the world, in each other, and in ourselves. That amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now